Hi, it's Stephanie Lynn over at embracingessentialism.com, where you can keep what's important, learn alongside your children, and also live simply and naturally. So, I wanted to share a tidbit about the essential learning component of what I try and do here at my homeschool. Now, I've actually been teaching for a long time, since a teaching assistant in the mid 2000s. For both high school and college. So the homeschooling my own kids in the younger ages aren't exactly my training and forte. However, I love the fact that I can revisit learning that I wish I would have had back at that level now. But something I have always tried to include as a teacher myself, and also now in my homeschool, as I create an atmosphere of education, is what I call the Big Four. Now, these don't come straight from Charlotte Mason, any of her volumes, but I do believe they encapsulate her principle. And so I want to share those Big Four with you as I walk through my day and include all four and think about what in my curriculum, what in my living books actually can spark and include these four things. So what I call the Big Four are imagination, or imagine, encourage, educate, and enjoy. So this can look like a variety of things. And in fact, there is a blog post on my blog about how I kind of walked through that with a book called Two Bad Ants. And what does it look like? What does it look like to extract or to include these four things in your day? Well, number one, you need to know that sometimes they overlap. You can enjoy something and imagine at the same time. So it's not like they have to be all four. It's just that you've checked these boxes. But so for instance, with the Two Bad Ants, let me use that as an example. With the Imagine, now the book itself, the reading of this living book triggers the imagination. And that is why I'm such a huge fan of living materials and Charlotte Mason's perspective on that, is that living books do activate this imagination. Reading activates the imagination. For those of you who read with their children or were read to as a child or love reading, you know that reading itself is an active mental activity. It is not one that is done well passively at all. So in reading Two Bad Ants, it definitely triggers the imagination. And if you've read that book, it is just endearing. You're following these two ants as they journey through a house. And so the descriptive language in that book, the perspective of that book, does everything to activate the imagination. So oftentimes you're checking that box through living books themselves, but also anything creative can also tap into this box. So if you ask your children to put on a little play or to build something or to create a game, all of that can activate the imagination. The fact that they are creating or having to apply this. So even active narration can sometimes be an act of imagination. However, with the imagination, it's specifically, in my mind, connected to some sort of creative outlet. So if your child has a hard time narrating or they don't enjoy narrating, oftentimes, if that is the case, the imagination isn't necessarily activated in the same way. So I want to activate their imagination. Often, this is through living books, and that checks the box for me. But there are other ways, games, role playing, storytelling, anything like that can activate the imagination. Second thing I like to do is encourage. Now, there are lots of different ways that you can encourage. I like to encourage as in with character development, asking questions, actually, approaching it with curiosity more so than a sermon. So asking, so what did you think about this? And it could be a character that did this activity or whatever, and just get the conversation going. And allowing them to extract, I guess, their own ideas from the piece and encourage them with that. So if they ask a good question, encourage them in that. If they connect a character trait with a character in a book, encourage them. That is a great observation. Even if the book itself promotes something you don't really like, you can encourage a conversation. If a child is troubled, you can encourage spiritual development. So there are lots of different ways to foster this encouragement, but encouraging curiosity, encouraging spiritual growth, encouraging character development. There's just a way that you are offering that encouragement to your child and making sure at the end of the day that your child has received like positive affirmation into their own education, right? And that's not to say that they're all about people pleasing you, or you're just like, you made me so proud today. That's not what I'm saying. But something like, you asked really good questions today. Of course, that feeds into their own self-esteem, but it also encourages them to keep doing that and to realize that that is a good thing to do. So imagine, encourage, then educate. Now, this, if you're homeschooling, should just kind of happens, right? This is when you're covering your language arts, when you're covering your math, when you're covering all your subjects. Like, there is an educational component where we're giving information, or the child is inputting information, and we're also expecting some form of output with narration. Depending on your style of education, there'll be different ways to kind of see if the child is understanding, but that is just obviously where we're touching base, making sure that we are making progress in our understanding and in our material, whatever that looks like. So education, the lesson itself. So how are you using imagination to help with this lesson? How are you using encouragement to help with this lesson? And not just the lesson, but the just learning day, right? So then we have enjoyment. So we want at the end of our day to feel like we have literally placed joy in it somehow. We have enjoyed our time together, our time learning, because the last thing we want to do, and Charlotte Mason was a big proponent of this, is that we shouldn't have to make learning enjoyable. It is enjoyable. Children enjoy learning. And it's actually the process of overdoing or doing education wrong that sucks the enjoyment out. So we don't necessarily have to infuse this in as long as we're not sucking it out. But at the same time, what are some things that bring extra joy? So for instance, my kids really love playing games. So finding different games that can connect to, so we do have some geography games, we have some US history games, we have nature games, things that you can just pull in to make the day just a little bit more enjoyable. And again, kind of push that learning in a little bit deeper. Something that I really love to do is there's an outdoor game that I found. It's actually for like a scouting kind of thing, where we were learning how to do the fox walk and creep up. And then it's a stalking game where, someone's in the middle and other people have to creep up to them, and the first person to reach and there's different rules. But my kids loved that game. And so when I realized how much they loved that game, I'm like, okay, how can I use this exact same principle so I don't have to explain another game? Like, how can I use this exact same principle to, click and drag it, right? So we used it in a nature capacity where, the person in the middle is the animal being observed and stalked. And, the people who are coming closer are, the hunters or whatever, observers, whatever. But then I was like, you know what? In history, we're learning about the swamp fox, if you're familiar with the Revolutionary War and Francis Marion, and how they would actually creep onto the British camps and, steal their horses and have little skirmishes, which helped with the Southern Theater in the Revolutionary War. So it's I could take that same idea. So the person in the middle was actually, the British soldier, and the people who were coming closer were Francis Marion's men, and whoever, got there first was the one who started the battle, and the kids just really loved that. So being able to find what sparks joy in your kids and really just makes the day, is the first thing that comes out of your mouth when your husband comes home and asks, so what'd you learn in school today? That's the one that's going to come out. And that's okay, because now my kids ask, can we play Francis Marion? Can we play Swamp Fox? And they're going to remember the stories of the Swamp Fox that we read about. And is that not, as they're playing this game, they're actually narrating the things that they've learned, which is amazing. So those are my big four, and I try to incorporate them every day. I'm like, okay, so today, even if we have nothing else, do we have the big four? Are we doing something that helps the imagination? Are we doing something that I can encourage? Are we doing something that there's an actual lesson going on here that at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, we did this, this, and this. And then is there a way that what am I doing to encapsulate and incorporate joy in their everyday learning experience? Because really, if education is an atmosphere, a discipline, and a life, like, are those not things that we want in our lives? Like, don't we want those big four? Don't we want our lives to be filled with imagination? Don't we want to be encouraged along the way? Don't we want to learn along the way with education? And also, don't we want to enjoy our lives? Like, if those are four of the main things that we want our lives to be characterized by, why shouldn't our children want their days to be characterized them in our homes as well? So those are the big four. This video was a tad longer than what I was expecting, but I hope that you found it helpful. And please let me know if you have any questions or any thoughts. I would love to discuss this. This is my jam. All right. Have a great day. Bye.